Nobody knew the night nurse was Army Ranger until armed gunmen stormed the hospital ward. The first shot didn't sound like thunder. It sounded smaller, tighter, like the hospital itself had flinched. At 2:17 a.m., under flickering fluorescent lights and the steady beep of heart monitors, fear slipped into the ward before anyone understood what it was. In that moment, lives changed forever, and nobody yet knew that the quiet night nurse with tired eyes and gentle hands carried a past forged in war, discipline, and survival. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and hidden strength inside ordinary people, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel right now. Stories like this deserve to be heard, remembered, and passed on. Before that night, she was simply known as Nurse Hannah to the patients on the 4th floor. She worked nights because it paid a little more and because the silence suited her. She moved through hallways with soft steps, checking IV lines, adjusting blankets, offering water to restless patients who couldn't sleep. Her face carried a calm that seemed practiced, as if she had learned how to keep storms locked behind her eyes. The other nurses thought she was shy, maybe a little distant. No one asked much about her past because she never volunteered it. On her badge, under her name, it just said RN, nothing more. What no one saw were the scars hidden beneath her scrubs, the discipline in her posture, the way her eyes instinctively tracked exits and corners. No one knew that before she learned to comfort the dying, she had learned how to move through darkness with a rifle in her hands. Before she learned how to stop bleeding with gauze and calm words, she had learned how to stop bleeding with pressure and grit in places where help never came quickly. Nursing was not her escape from that life. It was her way of making peace with it. The hospital that night was understaffed, like most nights. A winter storm rattled the windows, and the emergency department was unusually quiet. On the 4th floor, most patients slept. One was a teenage boy recovering from surgery after a car accident. Another was an elderly woman with failing lungs who clutched a photo of her late husband. Down the hall, a man detoxing from drugs tossed and turned, haunted by things no medication could fully silence. Hannah checked them all, moving with the same patience she used every night. Then the elevator chimed. At first, it didn't feel wrong. Elevators chimed all the time. But something in Hannah's chest tightened. She paused mid-step, listening. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway, faster than they should have been. Her training, buried deep and rarely acknowledged, stirred like a reflex waking from sleep. She smelled it before she heard it clearly, the sharp metallic scent of gun oil cutting through antiseptic air. When the second shot rang out, closer this time, screams followed. A nurse at the far end of the hall dropped a tray, metal crashing against tile. Panic rippled instantly, raw and uncontrolled. People ran without direction, some freezing where they stood, others bolting into patient rooms and locking doors. Overhead alarms began to wail, turning the corridor into a tunnel of sound and flashing lights. The gunman came into view near the nurse's station. He was young, shaking, his jacket soaked from melting snow. The weapon in his hands looked too big for him, like something borrowed from a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. His eyes were wild, unfocused, full of something between rage and despair. He shouted words that dissolved into noise under the alarm, but his meaning was clear. He wanted someone, or something, and he was willing to burn the world to get it. Hannah felt fear, but it did not control her. Fear was familiar. She had learned long ago how to work with it instead of against it. Her first instinct was not to fight but to protect. She saw the teenage boy's room door open, his eyes wide with terror, his body weak and helpless. She saw the elderly woman struggling to breathe faster as panic stole her air. She saw colleagues frozen in shock. The hospital had procedures for this, lockdown protocols, codes, steps to follow. But procedures assumed time. This night had none. Hannah moved. She guided the nearest nurse into a supply closet, locked it from the inside, and shoved a cart in front of the door. Her movements were quick but not frantic, efficient without drawing attention. She moved patients who could be moved, wheeling beds quietly into rooms farthest from the hallway, dimming lights, closing doors. Every action was calculated, every breath measured. The gunman fired again, closer now. Glass shattered somewhere behind her. A scream cut off abruptly, leaving a silence that was worse. In the hallway, Hannah crouched low, heart steady, mind sharp. She assessed angles, distances, cover. She tore strips from a spare sheet and wrapped them tightly around her hands, not for protection but for grip. Her reflection in a darkened window startled her for a moment, not because she looked afraid, but because she looked like someone else entirely. The nurse was still there, but layered beneath her was the soldier who had once led men through chaos and brought them home alive. She did not have a weapon. She did not need one to think like a ranger. When the gunman turned toward the patient rooms, Hannah acted. She emerged from the shadows at the end of the hall, moving in a way that drew his attention away from the doors behind him. She made herself visible, deliberate, unarmed. His focus snapped to her immediately, the way predators lock onto movement. He advanced, shouting, gun raised, hands trembling. Hannah kept her voice low and steady, her posture open, her movements slow. She had talked men down before, in villages under foreign skies, when everyone was exhausted and mistakes meant death. She spoke with the same calm now, not as a nurse, not as a soldier, but as a human being refusing to let this moment define them both. For a second, it worked. His grip loosened. His breathing stuttered. Tears cut lines through the grime on his face. Then a noise behind him startled him, and the weapon jerked back toward the rooms. Hannah closed the distance in a heartbeat. What followed happened faster than the mind could record in words. She moved into him, redirecting the barrel, using his momentum against him. Years of training took over, every movement precise, brutal, necessary. The gun skidded across the floor, clattering against the wall. They crashed to the ground, bodies colliding, the world reduced to breath, weight, leverage. She controlled his hands, pinned him, used her body like a tool she had once sworn she would never need again. Security arrived seconds later, then police. They pulled the gunman away, cuffed and sobbing, his fight gone. Only when the hallway filled with uniforms and shouting did Hannah allow herself to breathe fully. Her hands shook then, the delayed cost of control. The aftermath felt unreal. Patients cried. Nurses hugged each other. Blood was cleaned from the floor. Doors reopened. Life, somehow, resumed. Administrators would later ask her how she knew what to do. Reporters would dig, uncovering records she had hoped would stay buried. The truth came out quietly at first, then all at once. Before she was a nurse, Hannah had been an Army Ranger. Multiple deployments. Commendations she never mentioned. A career cut short not by injury, but by a choice to leave before war took everything from her. She didn't see herself as a hero. Heroes, in her mind, were the ones who survived and still chose kindness. The ones who stayed soft in a hard world. Nursing had been her way back to softness. That night, she sat beside the elderly woman until her breathing slowed again, holding her hand as if nothing extraordinary had happened. She checked on the teenage boy, who slept through most of the chaos, safe because someone he would never truly know had stood between him and danger. She hugged her coworkers, finally letting them see the cracks she usually hid. In the days that followed, letters arrived. From families. From patients. From strangers who heard the story and felt something shift inside them. Hannah read them quietly, alone, each word both heavy and healing. She stayed on the night shift. Because darkness still needed people willing to stand watch. Because fear still needed calm to meet it. Because sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who choose to heal instead of destroy. And because on nights when the hospital fell silent again, and the beeping of monitors returned to their steady rhythm, she could walk those halls knowing that even in the worst moments, humanity could still win. If this story reached something deep inside you, if it reminded you that courage often hides in plain sight, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps stories like this find others who need them. Before the ending, we have one special request for you. Please comment below where you're watching from and what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. In the end, nobody remembered the exact time the shots were fired or how many steps Hannah took down that hallway. What they remembered was the feeling that lingered afterward. The quiet realization that heroes don't always wear uniforms anymore, and sometimes they carry stethoscopes instead of rifles. They show up when it's hardest, ask for nothing, and disappear back into the night, ready to do it all again if they must.